After 2 weeks of intense jury selection and emotional testimony, a jury has handed down a sentence for the Garland County man convicted of killing a Hot Springs police officer. We thank you for joining us tonight at 5. I'm Rolly Hoyt. THV 11's Ian Russell has been in that courtroom since day one, and he has the latest on Ward's fate. And for the first time, we're hearing from those on both sides.
Kayvon Ward will spend the rest of his life in prison for the death of Hot Springs police officer Brent Scrimshire. It was a decision that took 30 minutes to make, and like the verdict they delivered Thursday night, it was a decision the jury made unanimously. 2 years since the death of Officer Brent Scrimshire, and this chapter of his wife Rachel's life has come to a close.
At the end of the day, laying in your bed, you're still alone. And it's hard.
In a 2-week-long trial, hundreds of pieces of evidence and hours of testimony were presented to convince jurors of Ward's guilt. That testimony was emotional, coming from officers who knew Scrimshire and those that responded to the Hot Springs backyard where Ward admitted he shot him. Rachel didn't testify, but spoke Friday morning after 2 consecutive life sentences were announced for Ward.
Brent always told me, he said, bad guys have rights too, and, I feel it was a fair and just trial, and, he got the verdict that he deserved.
The state, led by Deputy Prosecutor Petro, pushed for the death penalty in this case. In the end, the jury unanimously found that Ward didn't premeditate before he shot Officer Scrimshire, leading them to their life in prison sentence.
Yes, I was pretty shocked. I was, but, I do think that in the end, Brent got justice because murder one does carry a life sentence, and it's still without parole.
Defense attorney Bill James presented evidence that Ward had schizophrenia, something the state worked to deny. While Ward avoided the death penalty, James said they didn't win.
Love you, Kayvon.
He says no one does. There's still pain.
Who wins in this? Everybody loses. I mean, the Scrimshires, you can't quantify that loss. Mr. Ward's family loses. Everybody loses. The community loses. It's just bad all around.
We still have her to go next, but this kind of closes that chapter with him and lets me just process and move forward and eventually forgive him.
As for Karima Hernandez, the woman seen on dash cam video interfering with the officers as they tried to arrest Ward on March 10th, 2020, the prosecutor's office told me she has a hearing on Tuesday, but past that, they're unsure when her actual trial will start. In Hot Springs, Ian Russell, THV 11 News.